Welcome to the tutorial for our daily review question number 20. In question 20, we're going to see data displays, and we're going to need to do some interpreting of that data. One of the ways that we're going to do that is by using our measures of central tendency. There are three measures of central tendency which we'll talk about in this video. We'll describe how we can find them as well as a couple other data points that are important. Finally, I will show you briefly what several different data displays look like. However, if you need assistance with how to create any of those data displays, I'm going to encourage you to take a look at the links in the description of this video to find how to actually create those data displays. But let's go ahead and get started with our three different measurements of central tendency. Our first measurement of central tendency is what's called the mean. And the mean is the mathematical average of our data set. And generally speaking, if you've ever heard the word average before, what we are describing is the mean. In order to find the mean, or the mathematical average, you are always going to add up all of the numbers that are in the set of data that we have, and you are going to divide by how many points of data there were, or how many numbers were in that data set. And we'll take a look at how to do that in just a moment. Our next measurement of central tendency is what is called the median. And the median is the exact numerical center of a set of data. And you're going to find the median by putting our list in order and finding the exact center of that list of data. Our final measurement of central tendency is what's called the mode. And the mode is simply the data that appears the most often in a set of data. This one, we don't even really need to do anything. We just need to identify which data appears more often than the rest of the data. Finally, we also have another data point that's important for us. It is not a measurement of central tendency, but it does describe a lot of information that's helpful for us when we're looking at statistical questions or sets of data. And this is called the range. And the range is simply the distance between the largest and the smallest data that is in our data set. And we are going to do that by using subtraction. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can actually find our mean, median, mode, and range for a set of data. Here I've got a set of data 5, 3, 7, 9, 2, 1, 6, 14, and 2. The first thing that you're going to notice is that that data is not in order. Now, when we find the mean, we don't have to have the numbers in order, but we can have those numbers in order. And when we find the median and the mode and the range, we have to have those numbers in order. So I'm always going to encourage the first step that you do is to just put your list of data in order. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We'll rewrite our list as 1, 2, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 14. Now our list is in order. That helps us make a little bit more sense of that data. And it's also going to make it a lot easier to work with for our median, our mode, and our range. Now let's start though with the mean. In order to find the mean, we are told that we need to add up all of the numbers that are in our set of data, and we need to divide by how many points of data there were. In this case, I'm just going to rewrite a math sentence. It's going to be a nice long one that's adding up all of the numbers in our set of data. And then I'm going to count how many points of data there were in this set of data. In this case, I see that there are 9 numbers in my set of data, so I'm going to divide that by 9. Now, once I've done my addition, 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 9 plus 14, I'm going to end up with 39, and I need to divide that by 9. And then I can simply simplify that and end up with 4 3/9, or 4 1/3, or if you're using a calculator, which is totally okay, you might end up with 4.33333333. All of those are describing the same thing. Now remember, for the mean, we didn't have to add up all of our numbers in order from smallest to largest, but as we move on to median, we have to have our numbers in order because we have to find the exact center. And if our list is not in order, we might find the middle, but it might not be the numerical middle of that data. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at my list that's in order again. And this time I need to find the exact center. In order to find the exact center, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start crossing off numbers on both sides of my data until I end up with the same amount of numbers crossed off on both sides. In this case, I'm going to end up with 4 numbers on both sides and 1 number in the middle. Remember, we had 9 data points. So if I have 4 numbers on the left side, 4 numbers on the right side, and 1 number in the middle, I know that that number in the middle is exactly in the center. So that means that my median is 5 for this list. Now, I'm going to change this list just a little bit because I want to show you something that can sometimes happen when we're working with median. If I write almost the same list of data, in this case 1, 2, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 12, and 14, you're going to notice that I added a number in this list. And that's going to create a problem for us with how we just described that we can find the median. Well, I'm going to follow my same process. My list is in order. I'm going to cross off from both sides of my list until I end up in the exact middle. However, you're going to notice now that I have 2 numbers in the exact middle. And so in order to find the median of this set of data, we actually have to find what's directly in between the number 5 and 6. Sometimes you might know exactly what that number is. Like you might already know what's right between 5 and 6. But if you ever don't know, you can simply take those 2 numbers and find the mean or the average of those 2 numbers. In this case, I could take 5 plus 6 and divide it by 2 because there are 2 numbers there, and that's going to give me 5.5 as my new median. Okay, so pay attention if you ever end up with 2 numbers that are in the middle of our data set. You have to make sure that you are taking a look at what the mean of those 2 numbers is. Finally, we have our mode, and our mode is the data that appears the most often. I don't even really need to rewrite this list because I can simply look at the data that I have, and I'm looking for any numbers that appear more often than the rest of our data. That's pretty easy to see here. In this case, we end up with the number 2. Now, it is possible sometimes that you end up with more than one mode. If you have more than one number that show up the same amount of times, but more often than other parts of our data, then we could have more than one mode. It is also possible that you have no mode. If all of the numbers appear the same amount of times, then you have no mode. So if all of our numbers only showed up once, we would have no mode. If I had another number that repeated twice, I would have 2 modes in this particular problem. Finally, we want to describe the range, and the range is the distance between the largest and the smallest value. And we said that we would use subtraction for this. Again, for me it's helpful if I've set my numbers up in order because I can just look at the right side and subtract, and I can subtract that from the left side of our data. In this case, my largest number was 14 and my smallest was 1, so 14 minus 1 equals a range. That means the distance between the largest and the smallest data point was 13. That gives you an idea of how to find some of our important data points when we're looking at statistical data. And I do want to just offer a quick look at 4 different data displays. Again, if you need help creating any of these data displays, I'm going to encourage you to look at the link for some other videos. There are some other videos that go into really good detail about these. So look in the description for a link on how to do each one of these different types of data displays. The first data display that we have is called a dot plot. And sometimes instead of dots, you might see X's, and people would call those line plots, but they're really just the same thing, and they're describing how often each number occurs. In this case, it showed us the numbers of goals that a person scored or maybe a team scored in a game, and so you can see how frequently or how often each one of those numbers happened. Next, we have a histogram, and a histogram is telling us the frequency of things. One of the things that you're going to notice on the bottom of our histogram is that the bottom of our histogram uses what we would call intervals or bins. And so we're going to fill up numbers in between 60 and 65, 65 and 70, 70 and 75. And so we can't see individual data there, but we can see ranges of data about how often things are happening. Our next one is what's called a box and whisker plot, sometimes just called a box plot. And our box and whisker plot looks kind of complicated, but it actually gives us 5 really important pieces of data. It gives us our upper and lower extremes, our median, and our upper and lower quartiles. We haven't talked about what those are, but again, if you need some help with how to do that, check the link in the description below and find an example of how you can work on these box and whisker plots. Finally, we have what's called a stem and a leaf plot. And a stem and a leaf plot is a way to organize a list of data. Oftentimes, this is really helpful when we have a lot of numbers and we have numbers that are kind of spread out. We're going to split our numbers up into what's called a stem and a leaf, and the leaf is always showing us just the last digit in our number. So you can see that with the number 32. That number has been split up. The stem represents the tens column in this example, and then the leaf in this case has a 2, which shows me that there's 32 in that example. Please make sure that you're checking the description below if you need help with how to create any of these different data displays. And I'm so proud of you for making it through our weekly review.